Well, hello, welcome to a reading through of the Homeric hymn to Apollo. This is number 3 in the Oxford Classical Text book. This is quite a lovely poem. We have a number of these Homeric hymns. The date of these is fairly early, probably early 6th century, certainly post-Hesiotic. And it is written in the Homeric style with a lot of Homeric vocabulary, but it does contain many post-Homeric words and forms. The place of composition, the hymn is in the Scholiast. It's attributed to someone called Cinithus of Chios in a Scholiast on Pindar, but we have no other information other than that about it. Many scholars have seen the poem as a compilation of two halves, one poem to Delian Apollo and one to Pythian Apollo. There's a very good commentary by Hutchinson called 3 Homeric Hymns, the hymns to Apollo, Hermes and Aphrodite, and I highly recommend that commentary. Hutchinson sees it as a unity with 3 distinct movements. The first movement is the birth of Apollo. This is lines 1 to 178. The second movement is the founding of the Delphic Oracle, 179 to 387. And the third movement is Apollo choosing his first ministers of Delphi in 388 to 544. Particularly interesting little section. So they're just a few little scraps from Hutchinson. I do recommend the commentary. Much of what I will have to say comes from there and elsewhere. I have read the commentary by Hutchinson, taken out a few bits and pieces. So I'll begin with the first 18 lines, and so the poem begins, and I won't necessarily read all the Greek. To save time, I might just translate without reading out. I can't really do it terribly well in metre, so you're probably more interested in the translation than hearing me mangle the Greek. Anyway, it begins Mnesamai Udi Lathomai Apollonus Hekatoio. So it is in fact in hexameter, so I should perhaps have said me somai Ude Lathomai Apollonos Hekatoio. Something like that. Anyway, the first bit then means, now the Mnesamai is probably a subjunctive with a short vowel, because the Lathomai is subjunctive from Lanthano. So it may be a kind of hortatory subjunctive. May I call to mind, nor may I forget, and then it takes a genitive, Hekatoio, far shooting or something, Apollo, whom the gods, trom eusi, you'd get lack of contracts of course in Homeric Greek, at whom the gods tremble as he goes, that is Apollo, as he goes into the house, or perhaps down to the house of Zeus, Kaira tan aisusa. Now this is from Anna plus aiso, which is to dart. The ra here is from arrow, ara, very common in Homer. It's connected with the arrow, it's connected with the root from ararisco. It means fittingly or appropriately, often just skipped over and not translated, but the arata, the ta can generally not to be translated. It's more of a kind of generalizing te. And so accordingly, they dart up, this is all, the pantes, all the gods, dart up, hedraon, uncontracted feminine noun, from their seats. Now the epi is temesis, if you will, with the erkomenoia, and the skedon simply means near. So at him coming near. So all the gods are showing their respect. So all the gods accordingly dart up from their seats at him as he draws near. Hoti when tetana, he stretches out literally. So with a bow, it's to do with string. So when he strings his Phaidimos, glorious or something, shining might be best with this, shining toxa bows, plural for singular. So we'd say when he strings his shining bow. So we begin with this sign of respect at the hands of the gods. Now we get a nice de here, but it's quite an important de. Leto, oie, alone, from oios meaning alone. So Leto, alone, mimne, remains, understand seated. Mimno is a Homeric equivalent of meno. So she remains beside, parai for para, Zeus, who delights in the thunderbolt. So she alone, all the other gods get up and show respect because they're somewhat terrified of him, but she alone sits there, and of course that's his mother. And she, and again another ra here, you can leave it out or just say accordingly, she ekhalise, she slackens, because he's strung the bow, so she releases or loosens bios, the bow. Now be careful with this, there's bios, which is life, and bios, which is a bow, and there's also bia, which means strength. So this is the one meaning of bow. So she loosens the bow, and we get a te and kai, and ekleise is from, it's from klio, to shut, and the epsilon's been lengthened here, possibly for the sake of meter, and then we get two vowels here to make the meter fit. So she closes up the pharetrain, that's the quiver. Kai hoi ap ifthimon omon, kai resin helusa. So now it's, the hoi is for him, it's for auto, it's that usual Homericism that use hoi for him. So having taken, it's almost for him, almost from him, but having taken for him from his valiant shoulders, kai resin with her hands. So she removes the, having taken the bow is the object of it, toxan. So having taken the bow for him with her hands, kai resin, dative plural, from her, his valiant shoulders, from his strong or valiant shoulders, anacremase, from anacremamai, to hang up. She hangs it up, pros, against the kiona. This is the pillar of her father, this personal adjective here. It's her father, but it's from heos, and it has to agree with the patros, so it's genitive. So she hangs it up on the pillar of her father, and then from a pasilos is a peg, from a golden peg. So on it, we would say on a golden peg. Ton, so the participle here, leading him, Heise, from his dough, she causes him to sit, so she sits him down, esthronon, on a throne. Todara nicta eder capater de pai cruseo. Dignumenos philon quion, epeta de dimenus alloy, entha cathid Zeusi. So the father, this is Zeus. This is interesting that Zeus does this. Normally it's one of the other gods that would do this, but Zeus gives toe to him, and then the ara again is quite strange here, accordingly. He gives to him nectar, so nectar, it's like a special wine, the gods drink, in a golden cup. This is from depas. Interesting word, depas. It's one of those very, very ancient words that appears in Linear B. So it's a depas, it's a golden cup, goblet perhaps. Deikonoumenos, it is from deiknoumi. I translate it here as toasting, making a toast to. Well, we often do the same. We fill our glasses, we lift them up, we point them towards the person we're giving a toast to. It's exactly the same practice. It's literally pointing to, but here I think making a toast to his dear son. Could be his own son. Philon, some people translate it as dear, some as one's own. And then afterwards, the other gods, the other divinities, Cathidzusi, they sit down entha there. Remember back in the earlier few lines, all the gods have stood up either in fear or in awe of Apollo, and now they sit down. And we get this use of te. Lady Leto, Kyre, rejoices, Hunica for Hoti, because Etikten from Tikto, she has borne a son who is a toxophoron, a bearer or carrier of the bow, and Carteron, and mighty and powerful. Okay, we continue on here. Kyre Makher o Leto. This is evocative, so it's hail, blessed, O blessed Leti or Leto. Epe, tekes is aorist from tikto. This is the aorist form now from tikto without the augment, of course. Homeric Greek often leaves out the augment. Since you have born agla tekna, glorious children, and then the two are mentioned here, Lord Apollo and Artemis, who is the Chiron, probably the one who pours forth the arrows. This is one of the standard epithets of Artemis in Homer. Etymologically, it's from eos, an arrow, and the keo, to pour. It may be a reference to pouring out arrows in battle, but also in Greek thought, Artemis was the goddess who was blamed when a woman, and it was always a woman, had a stroke or a heart attack and suddenly drops dead. The Greeks said that Artemis had shot her with her arrows. So there's that overlay again of this particular epithet. Then we get tain men and ton de. So we note the chiasmus here. Greek loves the chiasmus. You've got she's mentioned second here, he's first, and then she's mentioned first and him second. So you get a crossover here. She in Ortygia. Now Ortygia, simply the name here means Quail Island. There have been several identifications of this were made in antiquity, probably one of the islands near Delos. So she in Ortygia and he in rocky Cranae, he in rocky Delos. It's Cranaos. He in rocky Delos. And if you've been to Delos, you will know it is quite rocky. So she gave birth, and then this continues on here. This is the participle, as she's reclining against or lying against literally the great mountain and the Cynthian Okthon, hill, the Cynthian hill, probably an Hendiadys here. These are both really the same thing. It's the great mountain is the hill of Cynthius. So Cynthius is in fact a hill on Delos. Ankotato phoinikos hup enopoio reethros. Now this is a superlative here. It means very near. It's from, you get Anki, and this is a superlative form from that. So it's most near or very near. This word is unknown in this meaning before Herodotus, so it's a bit suspect, these verses here. So it means very near the phoenix. This is the palm tree. This is a genitive after Anki. These were very rare in ancient Greece, and hence they were special. And the hupot, this use of hupot also with a dative here in this sense is also, some scholars have found this very odd, so these lines may in fact be somewhat suspect. But anyway, it's literally reclining against the great mountain and the hill of the Cynthian hill, most nearest to or nearest to the palm tree. Perhaps it must mean below the streams of Inopus. Now, Inopus was the only stream on the island of Delos. Postar se hupomneso. I'm going to read now lines 19 to 29. The ta here is for t plus ara. It's a combination of t plus ara. So how then appropriately, or will I hymn you appropriately, you being so completely well hymned, literally. So how will I hymn you, since you've had so many lovely hymns written about you, is the sense. So it begins with this rhetorical question, and much of the rest of this now is really going to be about offering different suggestions. So firstly, an explanation of why they asked this question in the first place. Pante gar toi phoebe. For Phoebus. Now there's a lot of difficulties here with this nomos. This is the manuscript reading. It's grammatically impossible because beble artai, this is this third person plural with the alpha here, this alpha representing a sonant nu, an n. So you would normally have ntai, but it's written as artai in Homeric dialect and in Ionic dialect. You'll see it also commonly in Herodotus. So this subject has to be a plural, not a singular. And so you can, an alternate reading here is to put nomoi, and that would mean literally pastures or fields. The form, the third person plural perfect Ionic form in the middle of this verb is used by Pindar to mean to lay out a foundation in song. I just note here, Richardson notes here that if you move the accent and put nomos, there is a word nomos, first appears in Alkmaar, which means a strain or a tune. And it turns up in later Greek as well, but it's first in Alkmaar. And so there may be a pun intended here, or it simply may have been that the original was nomoi with the accent on the first syllable. We don't know. In any case, this has to be nomoi with either accent. It's got to be plural. And so we can take it and pante everywhere. Toi for soy. So for, O Phoebus, perhaps a field of song, of odes. Fields of a song have been laid out, for that verb there, everywhere, toi for you. And we get amen and ade. So both an for Anna, so both on the mainland, which is a nourisher of portis is a calf or heifer. This is a very rare word, the meaning's pretty clear. It is found in Bacchylides later. So both on the mainland, which rears calves or rears portis heifers, and Nessus and on the islands. Passai de Scopiae toi harden, pardon kai pro ones aquae. So all the lookouts, you can see the Scopio, the Skeptomi root here, the Scopii, the places of lookout, and the farthest headlands, hard on means they are pleasing toy for you. Now, just to say something here about this form hard on, the hard on is from a verb. Let me just go aside here for a bit. Hard on is from this verb handano, and it's an interesting verb. It's one of those things you might compare it with something like manthano. You've got the an, which is that iterative infix. You've got the same in manthano, lanthano, same thing. And you've got a nasal infix, which is the nu here, as in manthano. And if you pull those out, you get the stem. So for manthano, it's math. And for this verb, you get had is the root. There's a whole class of these verbs. There's tungkano, does the same thing, manthano, lanthano. There's lots of these verbs that do this. And so you take out the nasal infix is put into the present tense. Take all that away and you get back to the stem. Here it's had. So that's what we're getting here without augment. So it's an aorist, but it doesn't augment, so it's had on. So this means all the lookouts and the farthest headlands are pleasing to you. The rivers of the high mountains and those things flowing ahead into the hala, into the sea. And the acti, the capes, Keklimini, this is something like it's Clino, it's sort of sloping down towards the salt sea, and the limines, these are the harbours, the lasses of the sea. Now, we have to supply here from earlier on something like I will hymn, something like that. So, and it's a question here. So, shall I hymn you first of all? Because remember we had this rhetorical question, how will I hymn you, back up in line 19. And now we have to supply this A with a question, shall I hymn you? So in other words, shall I sing the hymn of how, first of all, Leto bore, from Ticto again, you, as a karma. Well, it's almost a plaything, but it can mean a joy, a thing of joy. It's connected with Cairo. So a thing of joy for mortals. Interestingly, in Homer, Dionysus is described as karma protoisin, but here it's Apollo, a thing of joy for mortals. Clinthesa, this is Leto, it's reclining against the hill of Cynthus. We had the Cynthian hill before as an adjective, now we get the hill of Cynthus, on the rocky island, in Delos Amphi Rute, the ru here from re'amai to flow, so it's sea, surrounded by sea, with sea flowing all around. Hekatethi decuma kelinon, and Hekatethi, and from, I think it's from the other side, the kelinon, the black or perhaps dark wave, XAA, this is from X Amy Ibo, so comes out to the shore, and it's probably an imperfect here. So on the other side, the dark wave was coming out literally from the open sea understood, Kherson to the shore. So although it's got an X here coming out, it's coming to the shore with its ligopnoios anemoisi. This is the shrill blowing. You can see the pn root from pneo to blow, ligos shrill, with its shrill blowing winds or whistling winds. Ends then, and there, from there, ap or numenos, this is from or numai, coming out from there, you rule over all mortals. And Asso takes the dative. So that is the first 29 verses of the hymn to Apollo.